All right, welcome to Inside the Deal. I'm Trent Ziegler, your host, and this is where we break down how real operators are actually building, scaling, and closing deals in real estate today. Today, I'm joined by Benjamin Kimmich, CEO at Nurture Source. Appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, of course. Let's dive right in. For the viewers, what does somebody in the design and renovation space entail at a high level? What does a day-to-day look like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two things. There's design renovation in general, and then there's what we do. I think design renovation in general, you're going in, you're trying to understand customer expectations. Usually at the beginning of the project, you're trying to create a plan, kind of a budget, a design, a vision for what they're going to get. And I think in a lot of industries, what you get is pretty clear. You order out of a catalog or something like that. I think one of the hardest parts about design build is the customer has one vision of what's in their head, and often the contractor or the designer have a different vision. And so the challenge is how do you really get aligned on that vision? And then how do you provide somebody with, a price and a timeline and, kind of a plan to get from point A to point B? And that can be, a challenging process.
Right. So you said that's design and renovation. Now, what you do, how does that differ from, I guess, regular or traditional just design and renovation?
Fully. So we primarily work with real estate agents and people selling their houses. So typically somebody says, I want to sell my house. Usually the agent says, you're going to make a lot more money if you spend some time fixing it up. People today want to buy houses that are turnkey ready. They understand the complexities of hiring a contractor. It's a bunch of cash out of their pocket. So that's a hard thing after you just bought a house to spend more money on remodeling unless you're, pretty wealthy. So people really want to buy stuff that's basically turnkey or move-in ready. And so we work with real estate agents and home sellers to kind of create a plan. How do we maximize your dollars? And one ways we think about that is, we want somebody to make at least 50% on every dollar they spend. So if they're investing a dollar, getting their house remodeled, they should be getting at least $1.50 back. In some cases, it can be as much as $2. So if somebody spends $100,000, they should be getting additional 150 to $200,000 in sale price when they go to sell the house.
Right.
So it's a great investment for them. Our company will actually loan you the money. So even if they don't have the money, they can still get the remodeling done. So yeah, that's specifically what we do is we come in and we give people a formula on how to get their house ready for the market. Um, and we also provide financing or deal structure if they don't have the funds to do it.
Right. Okay. Great. So now a quick backstory. How did you get here?
So I read a bunch of Dwell magazines as a kid, and I was like, oh man, that'd be fun to make some gorgeous looking houses. So at the time when I was my dad got me a job as an electrician. So I kind of just evolved in the actual trades. First I was an electrician, then I was a carpenter, then I got my general contractor's license, and then in my early 30s I started my own business, general contracting here in Berkeley, California. So that's how I got started.
Yeah.
And then I did that for, about 8 years. And then a wonderful real estate agent that I had the chance to kind of network with introduced me to my current business partner, Gary Faber. And he had already started ramping up this prep for sale business. And I kind of looked at his business model and I was like, this is brilliant. I love it. I want to be part of it. And he was looking for somebody that had more, kind of high-end general contracting experiences. So we teamed up together.
Starting out in the trades. I like it. Starting out
Yep.
at the ground floor.
Yeah, I actually know how to, build the actual things. I don't get to do it anymore,
Yeah. Quick handoff, right?
but
Love it.
yeah.
Well, zooming out a little bit, talking about the industry at large a little bit more. What major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
So I think one of the bigger shifts we're just seeing is people used to be a little more open to buying something and fixing it up. I think kind of like on a generational level,
Hmm.
it used to be fine to buy a house that needed some remodeling work done, and you would just move in and get that remodeling work done later. Um, I think millennial buyers in particular, but also just like kind of across the whole industry, people are really paying more for good design and something that's move-in ready.
Hmm.
And just the trends of design are always changing.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out how to, you know, each neighborhood is a little different. It wants different things. Like I would say more like classic craftsman architecture still really works really well in Berkeley.
Hmm.
In San Francisco, you should not take a Victorian and try to get too modern with it, or you got to really do the whole thing. But like when you mishmash, Victorian and modern, it can be a little weird, even if everything looks good.
Yeah.
Um, so I think really having a cohesive design strategy, something that works for the neighborhood and for the house itself, and then yeah, just getting all the details right, um, is critical. You want somebody to come in and in our industry, we want somebody to come in and like fall in love with the house. It's not just okay, this will work. They've
Mhm.
got to be like, I want this house. And then they go back to their agent and they're like, what offer do I have to write
Right.
in order to get this house?
Yeah.
And then that's how you really, maximize things for the seller.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned different generations wanting different things, wanting a turnkey
Yeah,
house versus, I'm okay with buying this house and, putting in the elbow grease myself to actually
totally.
get it where it needs to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
That's
I think there's a lot of people in the kind of like boomer generation who maybe have a little more handyman experience, and they're like, yeah, I don't mind fixing some things. There's a certain contingent of people who I think are okay having, remodeling work done in their house. I think
Mhm.
a lot of the folks who work in, tech or finance or, other, certain industries, legal, for instance, like they're working crazy hours. They don't have the time to manage a project,
Right.
and they don't want that disruption in their house. They're busy all day. They want to come home and get their 2 hours of, chill time in a nice house, and they're willing to pay for it. So,
And working from home as well, post.
yeah, plus a bunch of work from home folks. You're right. Yeah, you bring that up right. There's a bunch of people working from home. I don't want remodeling happening in my house when I'm trying to work from home.
Yeah. I got a meeting.
Yeah,
Keep it down with the jackhammers back there.
exactly. Exactly.
So how has, given all that, how's that impacted your business or growth strategy, the market shifts? Going back to the market shifts a little bit.
Yeah, I think for us it's as we have grown, like so we do, anywhere from like 20 to 35 projects at a time. We've
Oh.
got 6 project managers, each who manage 3 or 4 projects.
Mhm.
Um, and so we're constantly looking for new operational tools, um, trying to figure out how to streamline everything, how to have really clear processes. There's a book called The Checklist Manifesto that I really like, and it's things go smoother when, you can just kind of execute on a plan. Everybody knows what the plan is, and it's consistent. Um, and something changes, you can update it. So on the operations side, that's one thing that's changed. Um, we're also realizing, there's a bunch of folks who, they're either upsizing or downsizing, or someone in the family passed away. And they want the benefit of prepping a house for sale, but they don't want to have to go through the process. And we've actually developed an interesting way to structure a deal where we say, hey, look, we're going to buy the house from you,
Mhm.
at a price that's a little below market. So if a house is worth 1.2, we buy it for 1,050,000 or 1.1.
Okay.
Um, that protects us. But then we renovate the house, we sell it, and we basically split the profit, um, with the seller. So, we might buy something like that, put 300K into it, right? So now the value of the house is, 1.5. And then we might sell that house for, 1.8 million.
Right.
And then give that owner, maybe 60% of the profit, right? So they get an extra 150,000. And so that goes back to them. Um, so they get the benefit of the renovation. Um, but they don't have to pay two mortgages. They get a check at the beginning. It's not something they have to worry about anymore.
Mhm.
And then we develop it and then share the profit with them.
Right. It's impacted your business
Yeah,
positively.
we have about five of these projects going on currently. Projects where people probably would have said, no, I'm just going to sell as is
Mhm.
if they hadn't chose this option because they weren't willing to go on the renovation journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a number of people that are choosing this option. And I think that's a big part of it is people are like, how do you structure this deal
Mhm.
to work with what I want to do with my life?
Right.
And I want my life to be less complex.
Mhm.
So how do we get there? And so this is the way we can kind of meet them there, um, and get them the value that they know is possible.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, working around the customer. The customer is king. Customer is priority. Always keeping that in mind. I love talking to business people who are fanatically prioritizing their customers.
for sure.
Uh,
I think that's something that me and Gary are pretty passionate about too. Like whenever I get a no, I'm like, I respect it, understood, like I respect your decision and help me understand why. Because there's something that we either haven't communicated or we don't understand about your experience or something like that, right? And I mean, I think Amazon is a well-known example of that, right? Like, how do we just make everything easier for people and
yeah.
reducing that friction? People that like shipping, like what that's not a big deal, right? What's a few days, right? Turns out a few days really matters to people, right?
Yeah.
So for us, we're like, hey, we've got this beautiful product that we can do, that we can create, we're gonna get you a bunch of money. And then people are like, yeah, I can't do it. And we're like, well, why not? And they're like, I don't know, it's intimidating. I'm worried that it's not going to work. I don't want to have two mortgages. I just want to move on with my life. And so we're like, great, how do we structure a deal that works with somebody that has those priorities?
Yeah. But I think that goes back to like simplicity and ease of access and talking about technology and um, like workflow optimization and things like that.
Exactly.
Everybody wants it and they want it now, and
That's right.
Don, great model, like let's get it to you in a day. I
Yep.
want it now, and let me just slide my finger across my screen
I
really.
mean, that's what we do on the business side too, right? Like you know, if somebody comes to us with a compelling offer on the business end, like
Mhm.
we will spend more on that, right? Somebody's like, hey, how do I just fix recruiting for you, right? Or how do I just, optimize your purchasing process or something? So
Yeah.
we are constantly looking for that on our end too. We have problems that are hard for us to solve. And if somebody brings something to us and says, hey, and they can, do a good job of describing how it's actually going to address the pain point we're dealing with,
Hmm.
we're like, great, when can you start? How much does it cost?
Yeah.
Here's a check.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, so what's working for you right now? What are you doing right now that is better than your competition? What's making you money now?
Yeah, I think the deal structure is one, which I kind of went over. I think that's something that a lot of our competitors are not offering.
Yeah.
So some level of financing support. I think that's a big one for people.
Mhm.
Um, we are um, we're moving the whole company a little bit more towards like an investment. So there's a lot of stuff that we'll just go buy it. We don't even, maybe the customer isn't a partner at all. We basically just go, buy the property. And so we're developing a lot of relationships with various agents, people who know their particular market and they understand how to find opportunities.
Mhm.
So I think that's something that's really working for us right now. We've
Yeah.
got probably five agents and it's interesting. The agents actually do a little bit of the kind of like work to evaluate the deal for us. They go in, they say, hey, I think you could buy this house for 1.2. I called the seller, they would accept an offer at that price. I think you could sell it for 1.8 if you put 300 grand into it. Like, are you guys interested? And then we can go to a walkthrough, take a look at the house, say, yep, comps look good. I think we can do the reno for 300K. That works. Let's write an offer.
Yeah.
So I think developing those relationships with agents who understand our investment mentality, and then they're out there looking for deals for us. And so on the prospecting side, that's really working for us.
Yeah. Okay. So is the is your previous business model or are you going to stick with what you're doing now in the future, or do you think that you're going to
So they
eventually?
really feed each other. It's actually interesting, right? So we develop relationships with agents. We can go to them and say, hey, for your listings, we offer prep for sale services. And if you have a customer that isn't interested in that, but they just want to sell their house, we're interested in that. And you're in the neighborhood, you're in a community, right? If you see a deal, it's not your listing, and maybe you don't have a buyer for it or anything, but you just think it's a good opportunity, bring that to us too, right? And so the nice thing is agents are thinking about us for all three of those scenarios, right? They're like, if I've got a listing, I bring it to Nurture Source. If I see an opportunity, I bring it to Nurture Source. Um, and they're going to figure out how to, if there's a way to make it work, they're going to figure out how we can do that.
Yeah. Nice. Synergetic relationships with the realtors. I love it.
Yeah, super critical to our business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So with that, where do you want to be about 12 months from now at Nurture Source?
Um, I'm right now just it's, April 2026. Um, I think that AI actually is going to have a pretty big impact on the Bay Area housing market.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, I think we're going to see some IPOs happening. I think we're going to see, some AI companies really figure out what's working, and they're going to be experiencing growth. And so there's going to be a contingent of people who are wanting to move up in life, and that's probably going to include buying a house. And so I think especially in East Bay, South Bay, and San Francisco, we're going to see housing prices go up, and we're going to see some scarcity because um, it's hard to create new houses here.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to be really focused on investment opportunities over the next 12 months. So part of that is creating more investor relationships, um, and more agent relationships.
Yeah.
I'd say another part of it is we are going to have to level up our operational side as we are doing more and larger projects. So 12 months from now, I'd love to see, um, some shift in our operational processes that are a little more efficient, and then more relationships with agents and more investment type projects that we're working on.
If you had to fix one thing in all of your operations right now and you had a magic wand to fix it, what would that one thing be?
I think it would just be like a general up-leveling of our software systems. And again, I don't know if that's like if I could wave a magic wand, it would probably be like, you know, the perfect project management system, right? Something that, a customer can interface with, something that's pretty automated. One of the things about our business is, we do a lot of the same types of projects. So, something that has like a bunch of templates in it would be really nice. Um, I think, you know, like one of the things that would be super cool is if there was like a voice interface, right? So a project manager driving between jobs, jumps in his car, puts in his AirPods, calls into the software system and says, "Hey, I just finished these 10 items. Can you please update, the status report? Also, three of these items are going to cost, more money. I'd like to write a change order for one, two, and three, right?" And so if that project manager could do that, this is just like an example,
Yeah.
but if they could do that like over the phone and then there's some sort of interface that like updated the actual, you know, reports and
Yeah.
bid and everything, like I think that would be a game changer on an operational level. So I'd say like if I could wave a magic wand, it would be like project managers, give me a list of every single feature you want in a software system.
Mhm.
We send it in and somebody ships a software system that gives us all those features. That's what I would want.
Yeah. So a software system. Gotcha. So
Yeah,
one unified platform to rule them all, right?
exactly. That's right.
I love it. Now, what's the cost of not solving that problem?
Oh, that's a great question. It depends on how you calculate it, but I'd say on the one end, it could be 150,000 a year. It could also be $700,000 a year. And it really just depends on like, you know, if something isn't on a checklist and therefore a customer comes in, moves into the house and they're upset, right? And then you don't get that person as a referral. What you don't know is maybe they had a friend looking for, you know, a $300,000 remodel. And because of a small mistake you made, you don't realize that you missed out on that referral, right? And a $300,000 project, that might be, 50 to $80,000 in profit.
Yeah.
So if you include that, I think you're closer to the like, you know, that could be up to like $1 million
Yeah.
in like lost business, you know, sending people back, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think if like every project could be delivered, you know, to our expectations 95% of the time, because the software system really empowered us to do that, there could be up to $1 million of lost revenue and operational costs.
Yeah.
And we're a, 12 to $14 million business. So, I would say like, on a revenue side, maybe 10%.
Yeah.
On a profit side, it could be, 200%, 300%,
Hmm.
because there's so many fixed costs involved.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, 100%. 100% it does. Large.
Yeah.
Pretty
It's a
small.
fun thing to think about. I like that you asked that question. I'm like, wait a minute, what does this actually cost us not having, you know, what we think we need? So,
Well, we've been talking about a lot about technology in general, and maybe a
mhm.
little bit of AI with your, idea with your call-in voice assistant to,
Yeah, totally.
update your backends.
Yeah,
But asking specifically about AI, um, I guess I have a few questions, and I'll ask them all up front. You can kind of answer them all at the same time. Like,
sure,
are you currently using AI? If so, where? Where is it underperforming? And
sure,
what's like your best idea if you have one outside of that voice assistant? Or
sure.
where is the biggest opportunity to implement it currently?
Right. Um, so I'm using it right now. We're using it in recruiting, like when we'll use it to help us review resumes.
Mhm.
Um, We use it a lot for drafting any kind of documents. It seems quite good for that. Give me write an email for me that proposes this. So I think different people in our team are using it for drafting documents and whatnot. Um, I think the thing for me is so my girlfriend actually works in AI. And part of what we do in the evenings or weekends is talk about our work.
Mhm.
And she's like absolutely convinced we could be leveraging AI far more than we are. And she has convinced me of that also. But the hard part is like I don't I don't know. There's going to be a certain amount of like internal skepticism, I think, from people when I just say, "Hey guys, you guys should use AI more." And everybody's like, "On what part of my work? How do I do that?" It's not, especially in our industry, we're not a tech industry.
Mhm.
We want to have a tech layer to it, but we don't have that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the thing that would be incredible for us is to have somebody who really understands the capabilities of AI and would come in and look at our business and say, okay, these five processes would be super easy to automate.
Mhm.
I know how to do it. I know what type of query you would put in. Let me do a training for your team to show you guys how you could use AI more. Um, I think one place we could look at it is both like marketing and prospecting for new projects. Theoretically, it could scan the MLS, look for specific things. We could upload our previous projects. It could say, great, I see that these houses had the biggest ROI. These other houses would probably be excellent candidates for what Nurture Source does, right?
Yeah.
I could see that being a very powerful way to use AI. So I would say like prospecting and marketing, but also like on an operational level, I'm sure that there's ways to use it. We just don't understand what those are, and we're not sure how to implement them. So
Yeah.
if there's any AI consultants listening to this podcast
Right.
and you think you can optimize our business, give me a call. We're interested in talking to you.
Yeah. Ben wants AI. I love it. Um, awesome. Well, closing out here, what advice would you give to somebody who is getting into your line of business?
Um, I mean, I guess it's probably a little cliche, but I would just say hire the best people you can. Um, Getting good people has been the thing that has, I think, allowed us to grow and be successful more so than anything else.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really easy to settle, and it's easy to convince yourself that, you know, hiring somebody that's maybe, marginally more talented isn't that big of a deal. Um, but I think I just find that people who have the right attitude, they're coachable, they have a growth-oriented mindset, even if they don't necessarily have all the experience and skills that you want, if
Mhm.
there's somebody who's got a great attitude, they're willing to learn and they're talented, and you're willing to train them and kind of coach them and work with them.
Yeah.
Um, there's a bunch of books out there, but like hiring for attitude is key.
Mhm.
And then a certain experience level is just mandatory. But if you get really good people, it's amazing. And then you empower them, right? It's amazing how many problems they will just solve on their own or get started. And then, hey, I've got this. I mean, some of the people that we're working with now that I love, one of them just gave me a call on Friday and they're like, hey, I'm seeing this problem in the business. I've got an idea. I think I could streamline our purchasing process. I'd love to like work with the design team and the purchasing team to see if I could streamline it. And I was like, I love that you're thinking that way. Let me know how I can support you. My job as CEO is to clear the way so you can actually do that. Um, but I love that he just called me and asked and said, hey, can I work on this?
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing you get when you have the right people working for you.
I've always said one high performer can outperform four regular performers.
It's
And you
totally
don't
true.
buy the high performer, you or rather hire the high performer,
Yeah,
you hire somebody that can be trained to be the high performer
that's right. Absolutely.
with mindset.
Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah.
Where can people find you at, Ben?
So Nurture Source Homes, .com is our website. We've got a beautiful website. You can see a bunch of examples of our work. That's probably the easiest place to find us. Benjamin Kimmich, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there too. But yeah, especially if you're a real estate agent in the Bay Area, we're always interested in creating new relationships. I'm happy to take anybody out for coffee and try to each real estate agent has kind of a different niche and thing that they're working on.
Mhm.
So yeah, nurturesourcehomes.com. Come check us out. That's the best place. And then there's a sales link. You can reach out. That comes to me, and happy to explore how we can help both agents and anybody who's selling their house.
Nice. Well, thanks for coming on today, Ben, and giving us some insight into your operations and what it is that you do and what you're seeing on a day to day. I always say knowledge is wealth. Let's spread the wealth. So thanks for sharing your wealth to everybody today.
Love it. Yeah, thanks for the way you're doing that, Trent. Appreciate you
Yeah.
having me on today. Thanks so much.